Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rams Review podcast preview show. And it's the one on the calendar that everyone's been waiting for. It's the return to Blackburn Rovers. And who better to talk about everything Derby County and Blackburn Rovers? John Eustace, history personified, is Ryan Hildred. Ryan, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Hello, yeah, all good, thank you. It's been probably a couple of months since I've spoken to some Derby fans, so that's good. After the little summer pillage that you were doing, but yeah, we're all good, thank you. All good.
I love the word summer and pillage. I don't think I've seen those two put
I
together
make it up.
in the same sentence. So we'll run with it. But so let's we can go back to that history if you want. Let's just see. Has the water settled somewhat at Blackburn since the departure of Mr. Eustace to Derby? Is there still a bitterness? Because obviously he hasn't gone back to Blackburn since. Obviously, you came to Derby, and there was plenty of snakes that were inflated pre-game, but quickly deflated post-game. Where's the feeling now?
Yeah, I think obviously I think Lewis Travis was obviously the icing on the cake, wasn't it, in terms of the strength of feeling in the fan base. So I think that initial high of ill feeling, I think that's gone. I think that's subsided mainly because all the focus is on Valerian Ismail and how poor Rovers have been for the majority of this season, albeit the last three games where we seem to have recovered some form. So I think, yeah, in many respects, Eustace has been forgotten just because it's the poor performance of Ismail and the team that has got everyone's focus rather than obviously thinking about what we used to have in Eustace. But obviously it's all going to restoke itself, isn't it, on Saturday? Yeah, I hadn't actually comprehended that point that it is Eustace's first time back at Ewood Park, so that's obviously going to add a layer to it as well. So I think it'll get restoked on Saturday, and I think we're all just happy that Lewis Travis is injured and isn't going to be the one scoring the 90th minute winner in front of all your fans at Ewood Park. That's what we're happy with.
Well, he is injured, and to be fair, well, on that issue, he hasn't really set the world on fire in Derby. I think the I think his price tag was inflated somewhat. I've
Mm,
never been convinced that the value that we paid for him was actually justified, but he may well prove us all wrong going forward. But he he was put into the middle with Ebu Adams, who you know from playing against him, and they're both a very, very similar type player. And
mm,
they both actually came out the side through injury or suspension, and in came David Ozo and Bobby Clark, who you'll come across obviously on Saturday, and they are a different entity, far more skilled footballers, give far more dynamic ability to the Derby County team. So I think that Blackburn won't have to worry about Travis. I think you won't be worried about Danny Barr either because he hasn't seen grass since he was put on the bench probably 2 months ago. He came on for a couple. Well, he started for a few games, but it never happened. And obviously Vyman is another one that may come and haunt you, may come back off the bench and score a winner in the 85th minute. But hey, we'll digress and go back to the conversation. So yeah, Ishmael came in. You're currently, I think you won 1-0 at Bristol City last night. Got you up to the dizzy heights of 18th. Is there a disappointment at the moment with the Blackburn fans that that's where you are?
yeah, I think so. Largely, it's been a poor season. Ishmael has proved himself to be a manager that's got streaks. So when he first came in, we didn't win a game for 7 games and then won four in a row. And we're looking like we could make the playoffs right at the end of the season on the end of Eustace's good work and obviously just missed out. It's been a real summer of transition. It's been a real summer of change. And the results until 3 games ago were looking quite bleak. We'd lost 4 out of 5 games in a little mini spell. The performance away at Charlton at the Valley, in particular at the end of September, was one of the poorest I've seen from a Rovers side away from home for quite some time. Absolutely did not lay a glove on Charlton whatsoever. And I think it was that was starting to worry the fans a little bit that once we go behind in games, we're beaten. and Ishmael's ability to tactically change a game for the positive seemed to be really coming up short. And it really all came to a head against Sheffield United 4 games ago now. We were 1-0 up at half time against a very poor Sheffield United team. When you look at the season so far this season, even with Wilder, for us to lose that game 3-1 in the second half and for us to end the game with no strikers when we're 2-1 down at home, it was really looking like some death bells for Ishmael at that point. I'd certainly made my mind up on the manager, and I still reserve a lot of judgment on him actually at this point, despite the last 3 results. So, really, the last 3 results have got him out of jail a little bit because they have been 3 really good wins. The Southampton one was a bit fortunate. Got a goal out of nowhere. I don't know if you've seen the highlights, but we equalised with a cross that just goes right into the goal from wide, and then we go on and win the game. The Leicester result was absolutely fantastic. One of the better away performances I've seen recently. And then last night to go to a ground that we historically don't do well at and win the game 1-0 seems to be that the tide is turning, but I think the jury is still out on Ishmael in a lot of the fan base. He talks a good game. He seems to have the buy-in of whoever is running the show at Ewood Park right now. It's certainly not the owners in Venky's, it's the representatives that they have at Ewood Park day to day, seems to have their ear and things like that. And he operates like a manager that feels safe in his position. So, yeah, the jury is still out on Ishmael, I'm afraid. Still a little bit to do to convince fans. And you know what? Winning 3 games in a row when you're still 18th kind of tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? You're not going to maintain that level of performance and form over the long term. So there's still a lot of work for Rovers to do, that's for sure.
Would you say the 3 wins have come from the playing well, or is it the fact that you've hit 3 teams are in really poor form and you've just seemed to have got them at the right time?
I think a bit of that, definitely. You know, Southampton aren't doing very well. Leicester aren't doing very well either. I think one of the main things is, as much as I've just, been quite critical of Valerian Ismail there, I don't think Ismail has been a very lucky manager this season. There's been things that have happened in game where if we take our chances, if we go 1-0 up in the game, we've had golden opportunities to do so. We could be looking at a different result entirely. So I don't think Ismail has had the rub of the green and the luck in that sense. That has absolutely shifted in the last 3 games. As I say, the game at home to Southampton, we get a goal out of nothing from a cross. And actually, Adam Armstrong should have put them 2-3-0 up in that game, and that one could have been done and dusted, but for a fantastic save from our goalkeeper. Leicester, in the first 5 minutes, we've got a brilliant block from Ryan Hildred, which leads to a corner, which then Vestergaard, it's going in, and I don't know what Mavadidi's doing, heading it in an offside position. If Leicester go 1-0 up in that game, again, maybe we're looking at a different scenario. So I think Ishmael in the last 3 games has maybe got the rub of the green and got the luck that he possibly hasn't had in previous games. And just to complete the set, I think ultimately it was also a good time to play Bristol City. They'd just been hammered 5-1 at Stoke. And I was expecting more of a response from Bristol City, if I'm being honest. I thought they were going to come out the traps firing, but they didn't. And we've just been able to flatline that game and get a really scrappy, ugly 1-0 win away from home, which is perfect in that sense.
It's strange in the Championship, isn't it, Ryan? Because at the moment there seems to be runs of either wins or defeats. That this whole division seems to want to plateau itself, and look at Derby. We've just won 4 on the trot, and now we're in the dizzy heights of 11th, and looking 11 points away from safety, which is incredible. 11 points away from safety after only 14 games is something not to not enjoy, shall we say, because it sort of gives you a little bit of a cushion. Do you think, looking at the Championship this year compared to the last couple of years, do you think this is the big one where anybody of the 24, well, let's remove Chef Wednesday out of it, the 23 can actually do something, or do you still believe that the big guns that have come down with their parachute payments? Bear in mind, there's only 4 teams in the whole division getting parachute payments. Do you think that this is a chance for anybody, including Derby and Blackburn, to almost make a statement and have that season of all seasons?
I think so. I think you only have to look at the top 6 now. I think the top 6, you look at it and you're like, oh my God, what a horrendous, horrible top 6 that is. It really, really is. So I think
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, the table's not lying at the moment, and I think there is an opportunity. And I've seen Southampton and Leicester and Ipswich. Actually, I was at that game that was obviously famously abandoned. They're not looking great, the three of those. And obviously, what these teams usually do in January is then go and strengthen and poach players, and maybe they can make the playoffs. But I think ultimately the answer to your question is yes, it is an opportunity for teams. I think it's a very, very even division. And that's why Rovers found themselves in the position that they did 3 games ago, because the fact that everyone is at a fairly even level means that it works both ways, doesn't it? If you get a run of form going, you can soon climb the table like you obviously have. But if you don't get points on the board and get wins, well, everyone else is going to. So then you're going to slip down the table. And, Sheffield United fans might be sat there, and maybe neutral fans might be sat there thinking, oh, Sheffield United will come good. But people were having this conversation about Luton last season, and now look where they find themselves. So you've got to be careful in the championship. And yeah, I think it has evened out. It really, really has. And I think Coventry do deserve to be where they are ultimately. But the fact that Coventry are top, I think does tell you that it's an even division this season, because really Coventry shouldn't be out competing those teams that have made all those signings and got all that parachute money. Definitely not.
It's strange because I was having a conversation with a fellow Derby fan last night, and one thing that I said is I think for the first year, FFP is finally starting to show what it really is all about. I think the parachute payments, even now, clubs are in so much financial debt from trying to stay in the Premier League that the parachute payment is literally being eaten up by debt from the previous season. Whereas previously, I think they've sort of been able to not put themselves in that position. And I think that this year, more than any year, and it reminds me very much of the League One that Derby got promoted out of when we were still, in theory, sort of coming out of administration. It was plateaued. There was a lot of teams in there that were much of a nothing. Of who you've seen so far, who sort of has impressed you? Like you mentioned Coventry, they beat us 5-3 in Derby's first home game, and we were 3-2 up in the 70 odd minute, and then capitulated. Same with Stoke. We were 1-0 up at Stoke going into the last 5 or 10 minutes, and then we capitulated. Who have you seen that you think, they could be a dark horse?
Ooh, in terms of dark horse, obviously you teed me up there for Coventry. I mean, to be fair, when we played away at Coventry City, we played really well in that game, and it was 0-0 for a long time, and Coventry got a goal out of nowhere, and they end up winning that game really, really comfortably. So I wouldn't say, even though Coventry are top, they're not a team that I've gone, oh wow, they've just suckered us. I'll tell you who the dark horse is probably going to be. It's probably Charlton. I referenced that game earlier. We were really, really poor in that game, really, really average, and we really didn't battle. Nathan Jones has got that team absolutely set up. Whether you love him or hate him, and I think he's got a lot of haters, he has got that team really motoring. And what they did really well against Rovers is they've got Charlie Kelman up front, and they've got two players out wide, and the three of them together, whoever the wide players are, work their absolute socks off, and they press from the front, and then the whole team presses as well. And we just could not cope with that press. And the longer that game went on, the less comfortable we got with that press. And really, it then became men against boys. And they just squeezed the life out of us. So they're winning games like that comfortably against Rovers, but then they're also doing things like what they did last night, winning 1-0 in the 95th minute. So for me, I would not write Charlton off just because of the way he's got that team set up, how difficult they are to play at the Valley, and just how annoying we know Nathan Jones is.
Yeah, well, I was just about to say if there was any manager that was a one of those annoying mosquitoes that you get in the summer that you just want to flick away constantly, Nathan Jones is that man. He's animated, he's emotional, but he's also very intelligent, and
Mm,
he in general his record is very good. Yeah, he's like a lot of managers in the championship. They've all had bad moves at some point in their career. I think of Rowett going to Stoke, for instance, from Derby, and what have you. And I think Jones also went to Stoke and sort of his
mm.
reputation went down somewhat, didn't it? So I agree. Um, let's go back to Blackburn Rovers. We are looking for someone. to stand out in your team at the weekend, who you think will be a thorn in John Eustace's side, who would you say is that individual?
That'll be Ryan Hildred. So I don't mind admitting that before the season started, I was like, who is this guy? You look at his credentials. He came through Arsenal's youth system, I think it was, alongside Bukayo Saka, kind of that age category. And then he's had some time in Scotland and abroad as well. And when we signed him, I was like, oh, who's this? And we'd obviously just lost Callum Britton to Middlesbrough as well, heavily linked with Derby. And Callum Britton was one of our big performers last season. So replacing Britain seemed like a really tall order. I tell you what, Alebiosu has come in and he has absolutely filled the gap that Britain left behind, constantly getting down that right hand side, an ability to dribble. The second goal that we scored away at Leicester, I think, really epitomizes Alebiosu. He's got no right to get to the byline in the way that he did in that game, but he just gets on his bike, powers past a couple of people. The ball just about stays in and obviously pulls it back for Good Johnson. So Alebiosu is the one to watch out for because he will, particularly the system that we're now playing, we're playing three at the back with wing backs. It gives him even more license to get forward. So yeah, he's the one to watch for Derby fans, Ryan Alebiosu, because he'll just be a constant threat down that right hand side, a really high progressive wing back and can defend as well. We had a home game against Stoke. And we were playing this stupid high risk strategy where we were sending Lewis Miller forward to take long throw ins and seemingly not having anyone at the back to cover apart from Alebiosu. Sorba Thomas is running through on goal and has the run of, one half of Ewood Park. Alebiosu comes out of nowhere and just puts in a proper old school challenge to win the ball back. And you're thinking, yeah, this kid, he can defend as well. So we seem to be blessed, a wing back that can defend first and foremost, but really can get forward as well.
He's had a strange start to his career. Just looking at his profile now on your website, and he's played at St Mirren, and then he had a loan spell at Crewe, and then he went off to Belgium where you signed him. He's sort of gone under the radar, and it seems to be at the moment the trend where a lot of a lot of individual players from England and Scotland are going to the Flanders area of Europe, making their career or establishing it, or even going back to Scotland or before Scotland, and then coming into the Championship and seem to be ready. We've got Max Johnson, who we signed from Salzburg, and then obviously an individual that we signed from yourselves. Well, we got from loan from Liverpool, who was with you last year, hasn't touched the ball, and that's Owen Beck. What do Derby fans should they expect from him? Because there is a rumour that he may well make his debut against you guys on Saturday.
Everything I've just said about Alebiosu is rinse and repeat for Owen Beck, actually. They're a different profile of player. Clearly, Alebiosu is a bit taller, a bit more athletic, more power, so to speak. But Owen Beck's game is exactly the same. He's someone that likes to get forward, can dribble out of nowhere. Probably does it, as I say, with less rawness than what Alebiosu does. But he's absolutely up for the fight and up for the battle and can defend first and foremost. Owen Beck made his debut for Rovers at Turf Moor in the East Lancs derby against Burnley. Like, this is a 20-year-old kid stepping into that environment, and he nearly got man of the match. He was absolutely sensational. He did not shy away from that challenge, and that really endeared him to the Rovers fans from that point. He had a chant about him, all those types of things. Just someone that's really up for the scrap. There was obviously the other famous incident that Derby fans might remember where Osmajic bit him. That was in another Lancashire derby against Preston. Again, not shying away from that battle. He's getting stuck into the kind of rough and tumble fighting on the pitch that happens in derby games. So he's just someone that will roll up his sleeves and get stuck in, so to speak. So it's a shame that you've not seen him and that he has had the injuries for you, because I do think really highly of Beck, and I was gutted that we didn't actually re-sign him ourselves, actually.
Another individual that's come into the Derby team this season since we last spoke is good old Mr. Ben Brereton Diaz, who spent pretty much all of his career, or that he's renowned for, at Blackburn Rovers. Over 150 appearances. Were you surprised to see him appear at Derby and not perhaps go back to Rovers? Were you looking at him?
I don't think we were looking at him. as much, I think fans would have gladly accepted him, but ultimately, I don't think we were looking at him. I think our club has now set its stall out to tap into those European markets and try and unearth some hidden gems on lower wages. So if you look at the players we signed in the summer, they definitely fit that category. Not surprised to see him end up at Derby. I think he's obviously struggled since leaving Rovers. Actually, he went to Villarreal, and we were hoping and praying and begging that he would do well, but really struggled. He obviously had a semi-successful loan spell at Sheffield United, didn't he? But really, outside of that, he's not really performed well. So I think going to a club like Derby that obviously get a lot of fans, generate a lot of noise, a good manager that will get his arm around him in John Eustace, is a really good fit actually for Brereton Diaz. Just somewhere to rebuild his confidence, rebuild that swagger, and really in some respects get his career back on track, because it probably shouldn't have gone like this for him since leaving Rovers. He should have gone onwards and upwards from us, because he was absolutely a man on fire, absolutely red hot at that point. But seemingly, the wheels have fallen off a little bit, including, dropping out of the Chile squad now, which is a real shame for him.
Yeah, yeah, it's strange because he's actually coming into form at Derby. He's playing on the right now. He's sort of been one of those players that Eustace has tried to almost fudge into the team to find a spot for him, and shuffled the pack around to make that happen, and fundamentally just completely lost the balance. He's now sort of gone to the right side of the pitch and really found his flow as such. So it'd be interesting to see the reaction that the Blackburn fans give him on Saturday. Just tying up on Blackburn Rovers before we ask for your predictions on a couple of questions I'm going to ask you. Your running over the next 3 or 4 games seems pretty tough, to be fair. You've got Derby at home, then you've got the Lancashire Derby at Preston, who are God knows what Heckingbottom has done there, but obviously something's going in the Weetabix. And then probably the easiest game potentially is QPR at home, and then you've got Wrexham away, and then Ipswich at home. Takes into December. Is there an anticipation that this form will continue, or are you quite nervous about those fixtures?
I'm still nervous. On the podcast that I do, I famously predicted that we would get 1 win out of the next 8, which started with Stoke City, and we've now got 2 wins in 5 or 6 or whatever it plans out. So my prediction is wrong. But ultimately, I am still nervous because A, I retain the concern about the manager and his tactical approach within games, and B, actually last night, we picked up a couple of injuries, and I do think the squad is going to get tested more and more as these midweek games keep coming into the mix. So was this the 3rd midweek game of the season? I think it was last night, wasn't it? So, and then there's another midweek game coming up as well. So
that's right.
I think yeah, so that's when squads really start getting tested out, and we don't have the biggest squad. So I do share what you've just said there, that I still think it will be a tough run of form through November as well, and some really tough games in that sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's the international break, another international break, I believe, isn't there, in November?
Yes.
Between which are just becoming annoying for everybody. Let's be completely honest. Do you think that break will help Blackburn in resurgence or bring in players back from injury?
I think so. I think last night, as I say, Ballast Toth got an injury, Scott Wharton got an injury. We've got a couple of other knocks around the squad. I think the 3 game weeks are ones that really do test a small squad like ours. So I do think, as much as it can obviously disrupt your flow and stop your momentum, actually I do think is a good time for us just to dust ourselves down and get ready for that Preston game, definitely. So I don't think you'd usually hear a fan say, oh, the international break when you're on a winning run is a good thing. I do think maybe it could be for us.
And again, it's honesty, and interesting to hear your perspective on that. I think the break is coming at a bad time for Derby, to be honest, because we were only really missing Beck to go into the starting 11, to be honest. Travis is out injured at the moment, but I think he'll struggle to get back into the team because Bobby Clark is a revelation. So couple of last questions, Ryan, and then I'll let you get back to your day. Who do you see the top 3 being? Actually, this last year, and I'll be honest with you, I can't remember who you said, but who do you see the top 3 being this year?
I think Coventry are going to stay in that top 3. I think they are impressive. I think they've got momentum. I think they've got the fans on side. And when you've just got a a club has a smell that it's their time, I think it's Coventry's time. I really do. I just think all the component parts are there for them to stay up there, actually. And Frank Lampard's a decent manager as well. Obviously, someone who you all know really well. So, yeah, I think Coventry. I think Ipswich will come good, and I think they've got money in their back pocket. So, Ipswich. If you think about the headlines that have been attached to Leicester and Southampton, I don't think those same headlines are attached to Ipswich. I think they're just having a very standard season in that sense. I do think they will come good. I think their squad depth will come to the fore. Arguably, they might strengthen in January. And again, the smell of a club that are doing things right off the pitch, apply that to Ipswich as well. You know, as much as, yes, they're not having the season they thought they might have, McKenna's still going to get backed. The club is still really well ran. So Ipswich and Coventry would be my top two. Then really it's anyone's guess, isn't it, for playoffs in that sense. Take your pick out of 16 teams, I think. I think it'll be too much for Rovers to make top six. I'm being brutally honest with you on that. And then there's probably clubs like Oxford and others in that same category as Rovers that playoffs is going to be too much. At this, I think Rob Edwards is a problem for Middlesbrough if he does end up going to Wolves. I think that's a real issue for Middlesbrough because he's got them moving. So I'll say if Edwards stays at Middlesbrough, maybe it's Middlesbrough's turn for the playoffs. So that'll be my three on the basis that Edwards is staying.
Yeah, Edwards has been a bit, again, going back to managers, isn't it, who's had that lull in form. But obviously the break did him good and he's doing wonders at Middlesbrough. Where do you see Derby finishing at, just out of interest? Do you think that this form will continue? Because there's a little bit of an underlying belief that Derby could do something out of the order this year. I'm not saying that's with every Derby fan, but I certainly think there's an optimism.
So if you look at his time at Rovers, the reason we failed is because of stuff off the pitch and the ownership and how backed Eustace was and all of that type of stuff. Those things aren't going to be there for Eustace if this run of form carries on. So I'm not surprised that you're now moving and you're now motoring. And I will absolutely say that you could make top six because we've seen it at Rovers. We so very nearly made the top six under Eustace, didn't we? So we've seen it ourselves. We know what Eustace plays like. We know how he can get a squad performing once he gets his stamp of approval on things, which he now appears to have. He's done wonders with the likes of Carlton Morris, turning him around and getting him moving. That's Eustace all over. He can just get players feeling good about themselves again. So I think Derby could make the top six, definitely. And when you look at the current top six, I'm sure Derby fans are looking there and thinking, are Stoke better than us? Are Preston better than us? You're probably saying, no, they're not. So why not aim for the top six? So I think, I could see Derby doing that if Eustace carries on in this vein of form, definitely.
Well, we're only 2 points off it, so we can dream, can't we? So the bottom three finally, and then we'll get your match prediction. Do we think that Wednesday are pretty much gone? I do, and I do, and I agree with you. I think United have got real issues. Do you see a big name going, or do you think the likes of Norwich and Southampton will sort their mess out?
I think maybe a big name might go, and I'll put Rovers into that mix as well, that we could be one of them. I think clubs like Rovers, Sheffield United and Norwich have to be really careful this season, because when you're getting into the business end of the season, if Portsmouth are down there, Fratton Park is going to be a fortress, and if they need points, they're going to get them at home. So I think clubs like us just need to be careful, because our home form is not great this season. Norwich's home form is not great this season. Sheffield United's home form isn't great this season. If you don't sort that out, you can get yourself into a bit of a problem. So I am going to say it will be Sheff Wednesday, Oxford, and it's a tough one, isn't it? A big team. I think Norwich are going to end up sacking Liam Manning, so maybe that might save them. Maybe Sheffield United, because they've got Wilder. Maybe it could be them. Maybe it could be, because they're not going to change him now, are they? So
they look
maybe it could be.
They'd look foolish to change him now. It'd be absolutely ridiculous. Probably even more ridiculous than the Chanzeri ownership at Wednesday. And let's be honest, the Sheffield clubs seem to either go one way and the other go the other way, or they go up and down together. There's a lot of history with it. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think the bottom two could really be in real trouble, and I'm going to go for Oxford because I think that the Rowett bubble will burst this year. I think Oxford can only sustain so long. I want to be proven wrong because I like Gary Rowett. A lot of fans won't like me saying that, but I've always been a fan of Rowett. He was treated badly at Derby by a previous owner, which we're not allowed to mention now. It's sacred. We never mention his name again. So finally, prediction, Ryan, of the score Saturday, 12:30 kickoff, Ewood Park. Where do you see the game going?
Oh, my little toe is twitching somewhat because the headlines really write themselves for this one. Because I don't know if Derby fans are also aware, but this is the 150th year anniversary celebration game for Rovers. So actually today, at the time of recording, 5th of November, is the day of the official birthday for Rovers. So we are 150 years old. So when I saw those fixtures released, and it's like, oh, who's the 150th anniversary game? Bloody Derby. Like, you could not write it, could you? So I think the headlines write themselves in so many different ways, and I'm just glad it's not Lewis Travis attached to the headline, because we all do still love him, and he is deep down, a real loyal servant of our club. So I am just going to plump for an optimistic 1-0 Rovers win, but I want you all to be clear that my little toe is twitching like a good un because the headlines write themselves.
Oh, mate. Well, that little toe can keep twitching because I just think Derby are going to come in there and probably provide yet another anniversary win away from home, because we did the same at West Brom. We went there for their anniversary early in the season and completely spoilt their party by grabbing a 1-0 win. So I'm going to go for 3-1. I think that Derby are on fire at the moment. And, when the likes of Ryan Brewster, who's now fit, cannot get into the starting 11, then you know that something's happening up top, because we play three up top with Aguiman, with Brereton Diaz, who's going to come back and may well haunt you, and then Carl Morris, who's the top scorer in the league. I can't believe a Derby County fan can say we have the top scorer in the league. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Our top goal scorer last year, Ryan, was Jerry Yates with 10 goals all season, and we've got Carl Morris on 9. So I'm going to go for 3-1. And finally, where can all these Derby fans catch up on your post-match thoughts after the game, Ryan?
Yeah, so I contribute to the Arte podcast with the Lancashire Telegraph. So Elliot Jackson is the reporter for the Lancashire Telegraph. Some of your fans might know Elliot as the one who was banned from Ewood Park very recently. So that made some of the headlines. So we still do the podcast. He's still doing a great job. But you can find me there. So I think it's at Blackburn Rovers on Twitter, and then you can search Arte Labor on Spotify as well.
Brilliant. Ryan, it's always great to catch up with you. We've done this a couple of times, and we always plan for a 20-minute chat, but when I end up talking to yourself, it always goes into 30, 35, 40 minutes. So always great to catch up, and let's do it again when you return to Pride Park. Ryan Hildred, Arte Labor podcast. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
And that's the Rams Review podcast preview show. Blackburn Rovers, 12:30, Ewood Park. Come on, you Rams.